there are things that I need to recognize and be grateful for. And the more you focus on what that feeling is, that gratitude, that's like one of the highest, that is the highest frequency, actually. I mean, they even say gratitude is higher than love, because when you are in that and you feel that, you're bringing more of that to yourself. And if more people would get in that frequency, I think, as we were talking about early on, as a community, we'd be more on the same vibration as each other, and it would be a better world, really.
Welcome to the New World Normal podcast. I'm Debbie Harrell, your host, and twice a month I'm speaking with some amazing humans who are disrupting norms and working to create a more inclusive and holistic society. These people are using their sphere of influence, no matter how large or small, to positively impact the world around them. They'll be sharing their expertise as well as sharing stories of resiliency and hope. We'll be talking about the issues that are affecting us all, from the environment, human rights, social issues, criminal justice, and education. We'll talk about our healthcare systems, wellness, and food, from how it's cultivated and distributed to how it's prepared and consumed. Basically, we're going to talk about all the systems in our society that aren't necessarily working for the benefit of the many. We'll strategize and collaborate on how we as a collective can intentionally make better choices every day that will lead to a positive change in the world around us. Because in the end, it's up to us to solve these problems. There is no magic potion or magic wand. It is us and our daily choices and how we spend our time and how we invest our resources. Intrigued? Stick around and have a listen, and by all means, click like or subscribe on your favorite podcast source. Hello, and welcome back to the New World Normal podcast. Today, I'm talking with Heather Hiniker, who, like our previous guest, Dr. Carly, is disrupting norms in the healthcare field. Heather found her calling after being diagnosed with a progressive, deteriorating autoimmune disease. And when traditional medicine failed her, she found her path and healing in the realm of regenerative technologies. After attaining remission from her diagnosis with these holistic therapies, Heather opened what is now one of the world's leading human optimization and longevity centers, Ascent, Adaptation, and Regeneration in Newport Beach, California. Heather's personal health struggles fueled her passion to share these cutting-edge modalities with the world, and now she's working to create a pandemic of well-being. Well, great. I'm glad that we are getting to chat, because my next episode that's coming out is I'm talking to a chiropractor in Colorado about health and healthcare and the lack thereof in our current system. So this will fit really nicely right after it. So
perfect. Yeah. So how long have you been doing this since COVID then, obviously?
Well, I got the idea at the beginning of COVID and then ran scared from it because, the whole, who am I? And using my voice and putting myself out there, it was terrifying. And so I did a lot of work and a lot of chasing myself and a lot of other ideas that I wanted to work on, and then came right back to, no, I think I want to do New World Normal. I want to do a podcast. I want to help people see that we're not all so different, because that's part of what I'm trying to do. Is they want us to believe we're so divided and don't agree on anything, but there's so many areas that cross that aisle, and we the people need to see those and start working in those areas with each other, because the time for leadership to lead us anywhere is gone.
Yeah, no, I'm so I love that you're saying this, because we've been talking about that for a long time. The whole thing is we're all made up of the same things. We're all made up of cells. We're all made up of different, frequencies and energy. And really, when it comes down to it, we are all the same. I mean, you take away all of this and we're the same. And I think people are ready to open their eyes to that. Probably a couple years ago, that wasn't the case, but people see what's happening, and politics aside and all the other stuff aside, when it comes down to it, I think, human beings want to be part of a community and they need each other. And so just to get back down to those basics of we're all comprised of the same things, just because sometimes we look different and, might have some different choices in life. When it comes down to it, we're all the same.
Yep. And we want the same things too. We want the same things for our families, a lot of the times, So thanks, Heather, for coming and talking to us today about what you're up to and how you're contributing to disrupting norms and building better ways. You have a regenerative technologies center in Newport Beach. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how that came to be your life's calling?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you and share some stuff. So basically, this was not my background. This is not what I went to college for. Had a background in mortgage. And so from 2000, or actually 1998 to 2007, I was in the mortgage industry in my 20s and very successful. And then the mortgage industry crashed in 2007. And literally right along with it, so did my health. And I was actually diagnosed with a progressive degenerative autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis. It wasn't something that ran in my family, so it wasn't something that was on my radar or that I even knew about. And when I got the diagnosis, Western medicine just said, look, this is what you have. This is what we do to treat it. We're going to put you on low dose chemotherapy. And if you don't get on that, you will probably end up dying from rheumatoid arthritis someday because it's going to eventually attack your organs. And, I was in my early 30s at the time. My daughter was 2 or 3 years old. And I was like, wow, chemotherapy. I saw what happened to my grandmother who had breast cancer. Like, I need to start looking at different options. And, with the mortgage industry crashing, I was successful. So I actually had put aside a little nest egg. I had a 401k. So I just said to myself, I'm going to try to find a way to put this in remission, and go about it a different way. And so for about 18 months, I was trying everything under the sun. I mean, you name it. I was going away to crazy retreats where I was doing wheatgrass enemas. I was working with a Chinese herbalist and drinking these concoctions that tasted like manure. But I would try anything. Nothing was too weird for me because I literally innately inside myself believed that we were created to be able to regenerate and self-heal. I believe God made us that way. And it's what kept me going. And so I just happened to be at the right place at the right time when someone was talking about a technology. It was actually one of the first technologies we started with called CVAC, which stands for Cyclic Variations in Adaptive Conditioning. And it's basically a pod. And he was just sharing how there was some small studies on how it affects chronic pain and inflammation and, fibromyalgia. And I was like, ooh, fibromyalgia, that's an autoimmune disease. I know that because my mom actually has fibromyalgia. And so I asked, anything on rheumatoid arthritis? And he's like, no, but what do you have to lose?
Right. Can I be your guinea pig?
Yeah, exactly. And I was going every single day and just going full force. And, it wasn't Superman's phone booth. I always say I didn't get in and all my inflammation was gone. But what did happen was I was able to sleep through the night. And from that time, like my daughter at that time was around 4.5, 5 years old. I hadn't slept through the night since she'd been born. Like I'd wake up every 20 minutes. So the fact that I had a pure night's sleep, I was sold. And that's what kept me going back. And then over the series of weeks and months, my inflammation dissipated so much that, I could put shoes on again. I could help my daughter get dressed in the morning because I couldn't even get her dressed. I mean, I couldn't pick her up. I couldn't do anything. And so it just opened my eyes to all of this. And fast forward, I was telling everyone and their mother about it because I was starting to feel like a human again and I was able to be a good mom again. And so I was bringing a lot of people in to see this gentleman who had the first center. And so he asked me to go into business with him. And I was very naive, but my passion and my heart was there. So I said, yes, let's do this. And, it was a very short time where we realized our work ethics were different and just we were on a different path. So I ended up buying him out and then changing location, name, everything. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to open up a center based on CVAC. And, fast forward, that's over 12 years ago. We now have 11 different modalities. They all work on a cellular level. The majority of them are class 2 medical, like FDA cleared. So they're recognized because they have the studies that prove what they do, but it all is working at the cellular level because we are only as healthy as our cells. So if you can affect the cell and help mitigate, the toxins, the waste, which in turn turns to inflammation. If you can sort that out, help with the detox aspect, and then increase the important things like oxygen, nutrients, permeability of the cells, you're on a good track. And everything is pretty much like, if you think about what disease is, it's inflammation.
That's what I was just going to say. Like we've heard so much, especially over the last couple of years, about inflammation. So I love this story. I love how empowering it is. I love how you didn't take their word for it. Not that I feel like everyone needs to distrust their doctors. Like I believe that they're in it for the right reasons and they're trying to do the best they can. I feel like their guidelines are a little outdated and they're all about making money. So there's lots of ways that they are falling short of helping the body heal itself. because I believe like you do, and I've read and heard other people say the same thing. We're meant to heal ourselves. Like our body is meant to regenerate and get better. I'm going to insert a little personal issue myself. I was just diagnosed with a autoimmune issue, and Hashimoto's is what I was diagnosed with.
Gonna guess that. Hashimoto. So many people right now. It's insane. But
I've heard it's really on the rise, and I feel like it's a lot of the toxins, the stuff we're putting in our bodies. But the medical, like my regular doctor told me, oh, cut gluten out of your diet, and we can't really do anything until until it starts to attack your thyroid. And I'm like, but wait a minute. Like, I don't want to just wait for it to attack my thyroid and then have to go on, lifelong medication. Like, there's got to be other things. So I'm down the rabbit hole like you were, not quite as robustly as you, but that's what led me to read the Tony Robbins' new book, which talks so much about all this regenerative and longevity. And it's so hopeful and inspiring. And it's what prompted me to reach out to you finally, because confession, we know each other in real life. So I'm excited to finally get to talk to you about what you're doing, because number one, I'm inspired and thankful that there are people like you out there, and to see somebody who's wanting to make their mess their message. Like, you went through some crap and now you're flipping it over and like, I want to help other people so that they don't have to deal with the answer that you got. Like, oh, just deal with it. Take this medicine that's probably going to make you sicker or you're going to die. Like, there's other options. And I think more and more people are becoming receptive to those options. Like you said at the beginning, you were talking about how you've got 4 new clients in one day. Like, people are ready for this information, and it's so exciting.
It is so exciting. I mean, when we first started 12 years ago, it was like I was speaking Chinese to people. I mean, they were like, what? Wait, what are you talking about? Sitting inside of a wet pod? What is it doing? And if it wasn't for like our professional athlete clientele, I probably wouldn't have made it. Like, I blew through my entire 401k of $500,000 just trying to keep it going. And, at the beginning of COVID, like everybody, like we had no idea what was going to happen. We didn't understand the impact, at the beginning, we didn't realize we were going to be quarantining and like everything. And so when that first happened, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this 2019 was a great year. I was going into 2020 knowing that it was going to be our best year yet. And then, pew! And, we stayed open, but I had to shut down everything like the online scheduling. We couldn't take any new clients. We were only dealing with clients that were right in the middle of therapeutic programs. And so to stop things on them, it would have been doing more harm than it would good. And so we went down to about 25% of our clientele, kept the doors open, those people coming in. And then when things started to lift, there was a shift, and you could feel it with people who some had been exposed to the virus. And the virus, as we all know, no matter what you feel about the virus, we all know that it's inflammatory. It's affecting us as far as inflammation. And I will stop there in regards to, what I think it's doing, but we all know that. And so people were dealing with things that they hadn't dealt with in the past. Even when they tested negative, they were still dealing with inflammation. And I have my own personal story. I got COVID in 2020 and I can tell you that story if you want.
Please do. I'd like to hear it because I'll share my story too. So,
okay, cool.
Share your COVID story.
So in 2020, we had a really big name as far as a celebrity coming in, probably one of the biggest names in boxing ever. Okay, I'll just put it there. And he was coming in to film a documentary. And so we all had to get tested. So myself and my staff, and then the whole entire facility had to be completely scoured down. So we all did our, tests, and we waited the 30 minutes or whatever it was. And the gentleman administering the test said, "Who's Heather Hiniker?" And I'm like,
"That's me."
Oh, you're positive for COVID. And literally, I was like how I am right now today. I'm all, come on, man. I go, there's no way I have COVID. Look at me. He goes, hey, I understand, but we can't have so-and-so come in because if he gets sick before this fight, but he goes, you don't want to be responsible for that. I said, no, absolutely not. He said, test tomorrow. And if you test negative, we'll reschedule. Went to another lab the next day, tested positive. And I was like, are you kidding me? So stayed home because at this point too, even if you're asymptomatic, I didn't know if I was contagious. I didn't know what was going on. I have a 16-year-old daughter. She was 14-year-old at the time. My husband has a job that he works, 12 hours a day at. And, they were being super strict on testing and everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And come to find out, so I had to call every single client that I came in contact with, because clients come in, I hug them, we're talking. No one got it, thankfully. My husband, and you know who my husband is, so you'll laugh at the story. He was like, well, if you have it and this is how it's affecting you, I want it. So try to give it to me. So he stayed sleeping in the same bed. He kissed me. I mean, I was just like, gosh, of course. He didn't get it. Violet didn't get it. My daughter didn't get it. So I was like, okay, fine. Tested negative a week later. And then when I tested negative, so I will say I would never have thought I had COVID, but I did have symptoms that were a little different. So like I was having like the sweats where I was like, oh my God, am I going through menopause already? What is this? Like, it was weird. And then just a slight, tiny little headache, which honestly, I would like, it was so mild, I wouldn't even have thought of it. But those were my two things. I didn't lose my taste or my smell like so many people did. But when I tested negative, all of a sudden I started to get the craziest flare up of rheumatoid arthritis. So mind you, I'm not on any medicine. They can't detect it in my blood. I am in full remission from my rheumatoid arthritis. After COVID, I had a flare up like I had never had before, where it was literally every joint of my body again. And I was like, what? Did I eat gluten? And, now I can even eat gluten and, I might feel a little tightness, but I can eradicate that and get it kicked out really quick. I went to the rheumatologist and UCLA, and she was like, Heather, I haven't seen you for like 7 years? Have you been managing your RA diagnosis? I'm like, yeah, I'm not on any medicine. And, she goes, oh yeah, you had those pods, huh? And we started talking about stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, but I got COVID and I am dying right now. And she's all, oh yeah, that's what we're seeing. It's highly inflammatory. So basically whatever you have going on or whatever you had going on, it's going to attack that. So it could have been an old injury. It could have been an old diagnosis. It's going to probably flare something up because it's so inflammatory. So within a couple of weeks, I was able to get everything under control again. She did my blood. What was very surprising was my blood. Actually, like the inflammation levels were super, super low. Like you still couldn't see my diagnosis or anything, but it came out as a flare. And then she also said, since you're here and haven't been here for 5 years, can I please run some x-rays on you? Like, I don't love getting x-rays, but I said, okay. Because she goes, you were obviously progressively having damage, like permanent damage to your joints. I wanted to see if that's maintained or if it's gotten a little worse. She goes, if you've been able to maintain it over these years, whatever you're doing, keep doing. Like I'm in awe. And I said, okay. So they did like 6 different areas of my body. And I have the results where I can actually show anyone who wants to see. But not only did it not progress, every single one said there was improvement. And she was like, I have never seen that before. Well, you know what that is? That's our body being able to regenerate. And so
I'm getting goosebumps. I love that.
So that was my COVID story. But guess what? It just opened my eyes to this is such an inflammatory virus. And there are going to be so many people that are affected by it, old and young. And that's what we're seeing. People months down the road are still having issues as far as pain and inflammation or, just lung capacity, energy levels. So it's there are days that we have a waiting list to get in right now, and we need to open up another facility basically, because this is something that needs to be shared with everyone as far as like what our bodies are capable of. Last note I'll put on that is when we're exposing people to different frequencies or different modalities, we are not employing or administering anything artificial. Okay. So you even think like there's some good therapies, there's some hormone therapies where you're actually getting a certain hormone, a synthetic hormone or whatever it be. But what that does is it makes your body stop producing that specific hormone. Same thing, like when you're in a hyperbaric chamber, there's definitely a need for hyperbaric when it comes to burns or wound healing. But over time on a physiological level, when you're getting that outsourced oxygen that your body should naturally be making, your body starts relying on it. So it doesn't think it needs to produce the red blood cells. And so everything we have in here actually makes your body adapt and be stronger. And so whether it be, producing more energy for your cells, the ATP that your mitochondria produce, we have modalities that do that. We have modalities that increase blood flow within the capillaries. It's not going to make your body rely on something. It's your body that's the miracle. So we just want to support that. And that's what we do.
That's a fascinating differentiation. I can see where that would be an issue if for some modalities. And inflammation, not just with COVID, inflammation is an issue with so many diseases that people are struggling with today. And that leads into my COVID story of I had gotten my diagnosis of Hashimoto's. Mind you, I had to fight my doctor to get her to even test me for it because it's not a test that they do regularly. And my symptoms were weird, but I'm not a woo-woo person, but it just kept coming up for me. And I had gone to this therapy camp thing for people who had had traumatic experiences, and everybody there had thyroid issues or Hashimoto's. And our therapist was like, well, yeah, because you guys have had this traumatic experience. So your adrenals are activated for an extended period of time. And that's not how they're supposed to. And I'm like, why did none of my doctors even mention that? I mean, the experience I had was years ago. All of my doctors were aware that I had that experience, and none of them mentioned that I should keep an eye on this. And then finally, this one doctor wasn't even willing to test until I'd really pushed her on it. And so finally she tested, and yes, I came up with the Hashimoto's, which is an inflammatory autoimmune that eventually it will attack my thyroid, but I'm not going to let it get there. Going down that rabbit hole of figuring it out. And my COVID experience was, because I was a person that never got sick. I got COVID from my daughter, my very social daughter, on Christmas. We both, figured out our diagnosis on Christmas. So Merry Christmas to us. She was stuck with me.
Memorable Christmas, though.
Yeah. And so she, had a day of fever, cough, and that was it. I never got the cough. I always felt like I had been hit by a truck, and that was my body's inflammatory response. Like my entire body was aching, and weird fevers. That was my 3 days of COVID, weird hallucinogenic fevers and feeling like I got hit by a truck. Never got the cough, never had short of breath, never lost my taste, luckily. So yeah, I really feel like inflammation is the root of so much. And that's one thing that I will say the modern medicine or current medical system did allude to for my treatment was remove gluten, because that is inflammatory, and it has helped. But I've gone the step further and removed like any inflammatory thing I can think of, whether that's the inflammatory oils that everybody uses and every restaurant uses. So I rarely eat out. It's very sad, but I can feel my body changing, and I can feel it getting stronger, and I can feel the inflammation going away. So that's encouraging to know that you can have that much of an effect just with your nutrition. Now, couple your nutrition with some fancy sci-fi pod, and wow, imagine. If you're enjoying this conversation, you'll love the discussions happening in the New World Normal community, where we meet regularly to discuss personal growth and social issues, because we know when we do our work, we're better able to navigate this ever-changing world. Be sure to follow the link in the show notes for more information.
Yeah. And the other thing, as far, because you're in this space, you start learning so much. And I feel so blessed to be able to be connected to so many people that get it. And, so like I would pride myself as far as technology. I mean, that's what I dedicate all of my research to, but I don't try to do everything. Like I'm not a nutritionist, but I work with some of the best nutritionists. So when you're talking about that and, highly inflammatory foods, and there's so many, the thing that I like to look at and I've been taught is like, you have someone like Dustin, okay, who can eat anything. My husband, he can eat and drink whatever he wants, and he just doesn't change. He never gets a stomach ache. He has a 6-pack. He has great energy. He sleeps great. So what is that? And has his, I know the majority of us, you've heard of leaky gut. Because of the food we're eating, because of the soil it's being grown in and what's being sprayed on it, there's such a small percentage of true organic food, it's causing us to have leaky gut. And there's a specific product that I've been taking, and I have my daughter take. It basically, within 20 minutes of taking a teaspoon of it, it tightens the tight junctions of your gut. And they actually have proven it. So you can see a before picture of taking it and then after, and your tight junctions are tightened, I don't have issues when I accidentally get soy sauce on my sushi when we went out, and I don't have to be the person like, don't put anything on it. Like, I don't really worry about it anymore because I'm taking 3 teaspoons of that a day. It lasts for 6 to 8 hours of those tight junctions being completely closed. And so you can begin to repair your gut because you're not allowing whatever toxins or inflammation factors leak out into the rest of your body. So it's, and I'll tell you what it is, Debbie, just
I was going to say, what is it? What is it?
It's Ion. So Ion Gut Health. And I believe it's Dr. Zach Bush.
Okay.
It is incredible. It's like 60 million year old soil. It re-signals things, but it's all tested. Violet calls it her dirt water. She said it tastes like dirt. It doesn't really taste like much to me. And honestly, like, I will take anything that's going to tighten my tight junctions that's been proven. And it's like been the easy fix. And then they're coming out with different things for the skin because that's your biggest organ. So to have like a bulletproof protective over the skin, which just came out, they're already sold out of it. Like it's the real deal. So that's something that everyone can do at home.
I'm excited to add that to my regimen. And I love that you mentioned the food that we're eating and how it's being grown. And I love the connection of, because I haven't talked about it on the podcast, but I talk about it in real life all the time, regenerative agriculture. Mm-hmm. So I love the idea of the regenerative agriculture and the regenerative medicine. Like, there's a little tie in there, and they're both so important. And I don't think a lot of people understand how much of a difference it makes that our food, what's the word I'm looking for? Industrial agriculture is growing food in dead soil. Like, it's not living. Whereas in regenerative agriculture, you're growing food in soil that's alive, that's, full of nutrients and minerals and all the good stuff that our body needs. And so then the plant is then getting some of that, and then we're consuming it through the food. Whereas the other food is just devoid of so much of those nutrients that our body needs. And that is an important point that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. So I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, and just understanding like microbiome too, and like where the gut starts. I mean, the gut kind of starts like as you're breathing in, like you have microbiome in your nose. And so you're breathing in air and toxins all day long, and pesticide, depending on where you live. I mean, I have some clients that live in up north, like central California. And I mean, gosh, the health issues in those communities because of what has been sprayed, it's insane. I mean, I feel so bad for these people that have been brought up in these generations where this is all they've known, and their farmers passed on to farmers, and they almost feel trapped in those areas, and it's wreaking havoc on the communities. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. So, and then to ingest that food constantly, it's just, I mean, there needs to be a huge shift when it comes to that, because what we're putting in our bodies is so much. I mean, you can try to keep repairing, but if you're not getting to the root cause of what's actually causing things, and it's not just the food. I mean, we know, the EMF, I mean, 5G, people don't understand that and what it's doing to each and every one of our cells. I mean, there are things that you need to do to help protect against that. So yes, you can come to a place like Ascent and, everything, the body starts regenerating. But if you are still exposing yourself to all of these things that have had the effect in the first place, that's where it's going to be an ongoing cycle for the rest of your life.
Right. You need to support the systems all the time in the best ways you can, because it's impossible to avoid it 100%. There's no way you can get, perfection in this system or process, but to support it enough to where, like you said, now I don't have to worry about if I get soy sauce on my sushi. And that's all I'm like right now. I'm really in the mindset of I'm eating to fuel my body. I'm eating to fuel my body. Whatever I'm putting in is either healing me or hurting me. So that's the mindset. But I know that someday I want to be able to, oh yes, I can have a little something or a cheat day, and it's not going to make me feel like absolute crap. And I know that's possible. I know it's 100% possible. I don't feel like I'm delusional in that. I know other people that have done it. I'm hearing your story of beating your autoimmune, getting it in remission and making improvements. So it can happen.
Well, and I think it's important not to focus on perfection. I mean, because perfection is not sustainable. We can't eat perfect all the time. We can't sleep perfect all the time. And so, a lot of people say 80-20, maybe 85-15 is a little bit better. But if you can, 85% the time make good decisions, and 15% of the time, yeah, you want to live, you can do that. Like the consistency in things. I mean, over a year ago, I hired a personal trainer for the first time in my life. Mid-40s, I noticed, wow, I'm not able to eat whatever I want, and I'm not able to keep up with Dustin like I used to. Something is shifting, and I don't want to go down that route. So I need to like add skeletal muscle mass and keep myself strong. And in the past, I was always that person who was so extreme. Like I would go gung ho and do 100%, and I would not mess up at all, but I wouldn't sustain it. Like maybe 90 days and, oh, yay, my body looks great. But then I would go back to normal. And so now I'm really trying to learn lifestyle. I mean, technology is part of my lifestyle, my regimen, and certain ways of eating, but the physical aspects of it, and then taking it to the next level too. I mean, I pride myself on, for my age, my phase angle, which is a measurement of the, integrity of your cell walls, is higher than I've pretty much ever seen any woman's. Biologically, I'm probably in my late 20s. Chronologically, I'm going to be 46. So I know that I'm doing things right on the inside out, but there's other things I can do. Like COVID hit, and if you know my husband, I'm like, God love him, but we were drinking, I was drinking a bottle of wine a night myself, and that was not acceptable. I mean, and it started to affect me. And so this year I just made a decision, like, you know what, I want to really take this to the next level. I have not had one drink of alcohol for over 100 days, and I can feel it and I can see it. And, it's not easy sometimes to make these decisions and not have that amazing piece of sourdough bread that someone likes. Although I will tell you, there's a place in Long Beach that has sourdough bread that they've tested for gluten. And because it's so fermented in the sourdough, we can eat it. It is the best bread I've ever had in my life. It is like a godsend.
I'm pulling my pen out. Where is that at?
It's called Copa Coffee, COPA Coffee. It's on Spring and Clark. Okay. It's right where we used to live. But oh my gosh. I mean, that guy makes the best bread in the world, and he's had it tested, and it does not upset me at all. And that was before I even started to take the ion. So it's a game changer. You don't even want to have other bread after this. It's so good.
Well, if I can have a slice of sourdough every now and again, I can be happy. Like I can. Sourdough's my favorite. I got so excited about the bread, it totally derailed my next thought. Bread is very exciting these days. The kids ordered pizza the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're torturing your poor mom. Like, I'm being so good, and I didn't have it. That's the other thing, is I've realized, like, I do have willpower. I can be disciplined. Well, and it's because I feel my body feeling better. And so I know it's going to hurt if I eat that. So why am I going to do that to myself?
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, even, the not drinking, like so many of my friends and our events and everything were always planned around, where are we going to go? And, the cocktails are so good. Oh my gosh, their wine list is amazing. And so to like still go out with friends and going out with one of my girlfriends tomorrow, it was always, let's have a bottle of rosé. And hey, it takes effort. And there are some times, I'm not going to lie, when we're having an amazing dinner, I would love a glass of wine, but right now I'm not doing it. Like, I just want to see, because I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life. When I was in my teens, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, Epstein-Barr syndrome, probably from 14 to about 16. I was able to manage that and kind of get into remission. And then in my 20s, I was pretty darn good in my 20s, actually. 30s is when RA diagnosis happened. And then 40s, I feel better than like literally I ever have felt, even better than when I was in my 20s. Like I'm so thankful because, when you've walked through something, and I was in chronic pain every single day to get out of bed was a process. To get my daughter, I couldn't dress her. I've shared this so many times. She had to dress herself. Just to get her to preschool was just so, it took so much. And then I get home and go right back to bed because I couldn't move. I've been there. So I know when people are completely debilitated by pain. And I can also say that I'm so grateful at this point, because had I not been there and walked that in those shoes of that chronic pain, I would not be able to do what I do today. My mom, has a history of chronic pain. She's had 3 back surgeries by the time she was 40 years old. I think her first one was in her late 20s, degenerative disc disease. She's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I mean, all inflammation things, right? And when I was in high school, I remember, she basically wore pajamas all day long. I couldn't stand it. And I'd get home and she was sleeping until 3:00. She'd wake up. And I looked at her one day and I was like, God, Mom, just get out of bed and go for a walk. Ooh, fast forward until when I was in my 30s, I understand why she couldn't function. Like I was that person. Like last thing in the world I could do was take a walk. So had I not actually been there, like I wouldn't be able to understand. But anyways, I like just going back to understanding and walking through that pain and understanding, the pain is so bad that I didn't want to get out of bed. And so I wouldn't, like when people are coming in wheelchairs and they're on oxygen or whatever it might be, like to be able to sympathize with them and be like, okay. And to let them know, like, I've been there where I almost needed a wheelchair. Like I couldn't even put my bra on or wash my own hair.
Oh my gosh. I've said that several times over the past, like I have so much compassion for people who have chronic pain because I've been in pain since September and it's exhausting. And just the simple things, like you said, getting dressed, putting a bra on, like I just stopped because it hurts, and washing my hair, like simple things. To put my hair in a ponytail is the most ridiculous display of contortion to try and get my hands up to put my head in. And yes, so a lot of compassion for people who deal with this on an ongoing basis because it's debilitating and exhausting.
It is. I mean, and then the fact of the matter is, even all you want to do is sleep. But when you're sleeping, anytime you move, you get sharp pains or shooting pains and it wakes you up. I mean, it is a vicious cycle. I mean, it is horrible until you can start really getting that inflammation under control. So I just feel really blessed at this point to be able to understand how to affect that in a positive way.
Yes. And that leads me to the importance of personal responsibility for our listeners. Like, do you have any tips for things that they can do to affect their overall wellness, aside from obviously visiting a center like yours? But other than that, and then leading up to that, what are some of your most popular and effective modalities that you use there?
Really, I mean, what we're putting in our bodies, as we touched on earlier, is probably one of the most important things. Even when it comes to if you're trying to get in better shape and add muscle mass, like 80% of what you're doing is what you're putting in your body. So I would really encourage people to look at that. I mean, I take for granted saying don't have anything with artificial sweeteners. Like I wouldn't touch an artificial sweetener with a 10-foot pole, but yet the majority of our society still does. I mean, I'll see people put sweet and low and those things in tea. I don't get it, but the majority of our society are still doing that. So cutting out things just as simple as artificial sweeteners, processed foods, fast food. Again, like I can't imagine going to a McDonald's. I know what that nutrition or lack of looks like, but that is what is mass advertised of, this is a good thing to eat. So I would just say take a look at that and try to get as much whole foods as you possibly can, staying organic preferably, but baby steps. I mean, sometimes I think the majority of people would look at what I eat and be like, oh my gosh, this lady is crazy. But it's normal to me. And I didn't do it overnight. It was just baby steps of, all right, I got to cut this out because this is causing inflammation and I see how it affects me. And so that would be the first thing I'd look at. Getting a really good quality water is so important too. Our water is not good for us, I mean, and a lot of it has to do with what's being flushed down the toilets and all of that. I mean, so to really have a good water is important. We drink really good water. And then just moving. I mean, just the simple things. I mean, they talk about like the most important doctors is Dr. Sun, exercise, sleep, those core things. If you can get into check and, have some movement every single day, get some vitamin D every single day, get at least your 8 hours of sleep a night, because that really truly is where regeneration and healing is happening. And if you're not allowing yourself that 8 hours to get into, the different phases of sleep, I mean, I quantify everything every single night on my Aura Ring. I am addicted to it.
I just found my Fitbit again, and I've been obsessed with my sleep score.
Yeah. And it's like every day I wake up, what was my REM sleep? What was my heart rate variability? What is my resting heart rate?
Oh, I remember you mentioning that when you first started the technology, the pod technology for your issues, that the first thing you noticed is you were able to sleep. Sleep is so important.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't cost any money.
No. And it's great. Like, who doesn't love to sleep longer in their cozy, warm bed? I don't know. I love my bed.
Oh, I do too. Well, and then another thing that you can do that's totally free, practice gratitude. And I know that sounds cheesy to some people, but literally waking up in the morning, and I do it all the time. I literally wake up and just like, I love my safe, warm, soft bed. I'm so happy right now. I have one of our technologies underneath my sheet. So I start my beamer to increase my blood flow in the morning. And then, that's when I say my prayers. And that's when I'm so grateful for so many things. And yeah, I've gone through hard things in my life. Like we are human. So we are going to have our ups and downs, but even in the worst of times, there are still things to be grateful for. Even if I've had the most horrible day in the world, I still have a healthy daughter. I have a good marriage. Like, there are things that I need to recognize and be grateful for. And the more you focus on what that feeling is, that gratitude, that's like that is the highest frequency, actually. I mean, they even say gratitude is higher than love, because when you are in that and you feel that, you're bringing more of that to yourself. And if more people would get in that frequency, I think, as we were talking about early on, as a community, we'd be more on the same vibration as each other. And it would be a better world, really.
Right. I'm getting goosebumps again, Heather. I love it. and I had read somewhere or heard someone on a podcast talk about claiming your first thought of the day. Like, we're so conditioned to grab the phone first thing, and then we let all that energy into our day. And that's one thing that I've been really trying to do, is keep my phone on my desk, so away from my bedroom, so that when I wake up, I can intentionally grab that first thought and be grateful. Like, gratitude is such a huge part of that type of practice. So I love hearing you say that, because I really believe it is healing, and that vibration and us all being in the same and wanting the same things. It would be a beautiful world.
One of my best friends said, I can wake up in the morning and say, today is going to suck. Well, guess what? Today is going to suck. If you wake up like dreading the day, knowing, oh my God, I have the busiest day and this person's coming in and that, and I have to deal with this. Yeah, that's the way your day is going to go. But if you can turn it around and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that my office is busy. It's going to be nonstop today, and just be grateful for the things you can be grateful for. Your day definitely turns around. And then some of the more out of the box things, you want to get into some of that?
Well, I was like, what's this beamer thing? I don't have to get out of bed to do it. I am in.
So we have 11 different modalities at Ascent. I'm actually a distributor of all of them and get wholesale pricing on all of them. So I always like to say that, because we offer hands-on training. I make sure people know how to use things right. That's all included with it. And you're getting, what the manufacturer's pricing is. So I always want to put that out there. That being said, Beamer is one of our number one technologies. 95% of our clients have them at home. So they're not a $150,000 CVAC pod or a $65,000 red light bed that we have. Like, our clients come here for that. But the Beamer is actually a class 2 medical device cleared by the FDA, believe it or not. And what it does is it increases something called vasomotion. So I'm going to go as quick as possible without talking too much, because I can probably go on for 20 minutes on this subject. But so Beamer is increasing blood flow in your capillaries. So real quick, think about the way your circulatory system is for your blood vessels. You have your arteries, which are the largest, your veins, and your capillaries. Western medicine treats veins and arteries, okay? That's only 26% of your circulatory system. So 3/4, 74%, are your capillaries. Those are the teeny tiny vessels that go through every tissue, every organ. A lot of times they're like the width of a tenth of a human hair. So one red blood cell can go through some capillaries at a time. Well, the capillaries, if you stretch your capillaries out, you're looking at around 75,000 miles of vessels in you. That goes around the earth almost 3 times in one person, okay? That system, there's no way the heart can pump blood through that system. We're talking that 75,000 miles. So the capillaries, the majority of your circulatory system, has its own action. It's the constriction and dilation of the capillary walls, kind of like a pump. It's called vasomotion. So what this particular device has been proven to do, and it's the only one in the world, and it has patents, its signal has been studied, it has all the science. So what I'm saying to you has been proven. It increases that vasomotion situation by up to 30%. So someone that's in their prime, like an elite athlete or someone, that's just like in their 20s, probably has 4 to 6 of those occurrences in 1 minute. Someone that's elderly, someone that has diabetes, they might only have 1 of those occurrences in 4 minutes. What the Beamer has been proven to do is increase that by 30%, and in turn, increasing oxygenation of tissues by 30%. And we all know disease can't really live in an oxygenated state. So that's something that I actually sleep on every night. There's a sleep program. I wake up in the morning and do my 8-minute program that gives me extra energy for 12 to 16 hours throughout the day. And it's just been a game changer for me as far as inflammation and just quality of life. And Beamer, everyone's like, what? Beamer, the car? No, it's not a car. It stands for bioelectromagnetic energy regulation. It's actually classified as a PEMF device, which is pulsed electromagnetic field. You've heard of PEMF, right?
Well, it's one of the notes I took down when I was listening to the Tony Robbins book.
Okay.
So it's one of the tabs I have open on my phone. You see all the tabs I have open on my laptop.
That's me too. He actually has the Beamers. He has a good majority of our technologies at his homes. He has multiple homes and he has multiple modalities. So
no, definitely. When I was listening to it, I was like, oh, well, the rich people are going to live forever and we're going to be scrambling. But then talking to someone like you, like, this is so much more accessible. Like, it seems like sci-fi, but it's really available for us all.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the Beamer, my whole entire family uses. I mean, even Dustin gets on it, believe it or not. My daughter uses it every single day because autoimmune runs in our family, obviously. I don't want Violet to have to go down that road. And so she's been exposed to these technologies since she was really little. I'm praying that, as far as reverse aging, she gets to stay like in her prime forever. I mean, that's what could happen. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really neat to see.
No, and it is fascinating. Lots of technologies and just different protocols to affect longevity, like stuff that's already available, and them just realizing that aging doesn't have to be what it is now. Like, we can treat aging like a disease and prevent it. So it's a crazy time to be alive, but it's also fascinating.
It's a great time to be alive. Like, not only prevent it, but reverse it. And then that's what we actually have a device here that it's called a bioimpedance device. And I can measure the integrity of someone's cells. It's called phase angle. And that number is a really great indicator of health. Well, typically it only goes down with age. I've actually brought mine up consistently over the years. And so basically reverse aging on a cellular level. And then obviously that will come out on the outside. It's most important on the inside though, because you're only as healthy as your cells. The device will also show systemic inflammation levels. And again, instead of going up, mine consistently go down. So these are technologies that we have in-house to help quantify what everything else is doing, because, people are funny. They'll feel better and their diagnosis will be gone, but they'll be like, is it working? I mean, so they want to see like a blood test. I'm not going to do a blood test. I'm not a doctor. This will actually show me more. So I love getting that baseline and then being able to show people over the months how they're improving.
That's amazing. I feel like this is a great place to wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing all this amazing, inspiring, and hopeful information that we all have the opportunity to heal ourselves.
Absolutely.
In meaningful ways.
I'm so thankful to be on, Debbie, for sure. And if anyone has any questions or they want to dive into stuff, our website is www.ascentadaptation.com, and it lists all of our technologies, and myself and my staff will make ourselves available to anyone with questions.
That's awesome. And we will for sure put all that information in the show notes as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Debbie.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I really find these new technologies so fascinating and give so much hope as to the people that they might help and the diseases they might cure or manage. And if you're struggling with anything that you think Heather and her team might be able to help you with, reach out to them. Even if you're not in Southern California, I'm sure they'd be able to point you in the right direction. And another thing that was mentioned in this conversation, if you are interested in these sorts of technologies, you need to check out Tony Robbins' new book, Life Force. It is mind-blowing. So that is all for today. I hope to see you back again in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our show. If you enjoyed what you heard, feel free to subscribe and leave us a review. If you didn't enjoy what you heard, reach out to us and let us know how we can make it better. This show really is about all of us, not just me and my guests, but how we can all work together to make the world just a little bit better. And if you'd like to connect with us in other ways, be sure to follow us on Instagram. We also have a free Facebook group where our fans of the show can connect and discuss their favorite episodes. And in addition to that, we have a membership platform, The Collective by New World Normal, where you will participate in monthly workshops, pop-up challenges, and weekly meetings to support a more intentional lifestyle. We have meaningful conversations about important topics, all in a space that is safe, supportive, and encouraging. So join us. And if you'd like to show us some more support, check out our intentional apparel shop online, New World Intentions. You'll find t-shirts, hats, totes, all with positive messaging to help you move more mindfully through your day and help you to create that new world normal. You can also check out our affiliate page, where you'll find our favorite eco-friendly household and personal care products. Thanks again for listening.